Separated by COVID restrictions, torn apart by border bans. Across the country, this Father's Day was a tough one for so many families.
This takes a cake, I tell you. It's to do with politics.
It's just stupid.
It's a heartache the PM's family was spared, though you wouldn't know it from his Instagram post.
Being a dad is a special gift we are given in life. On the day this photo was taken of our family together earlier this year, I was reminded of just how precious that gift is.
Critics say the old photo and bittersweet caption implied a Father's Day spent apart, when in actual fact the PM was lucky enough to fly from locked-down Canberra to lockdown Sydney and back again.
You weren't trying to cover up anything? No, of course not.
The PM's travel only coming to light after plane enthusiasts spotted the VIP jet coming and going.
It should be one in, all in. And what destroys morale in a community is not just being locked down yourself, but a sense that there's two sets of rules in this country.
As far as the rules go, it was all above board. The ACT government granting the PM a special exemption to return to Canberra without the usual 14-day quarantine period.
It's a decision that the Prime Minister has taken. Is it a cause of concern for many in the community? Clearly it is.
Mr Morrison's exercised poor judgment in this case. It's not that he doesn't deserve to see his kids, but so does every other Australian. When your people are doing it tough, you've got to do it tough too.
It's a bit of a cheap shot, to be honest. I mean, Bill knows full well what these rules are.
The PM, who reportedly planned to stay in Sydney before a high-level meeting changed his plans,
There's very secure information that I can only receive directly.
says he's done nothing wrong.
The suggestion that somehow this was an unusual arrangement for members of Parliament and indeed ministers, well, that just wouldn't be true.
But stranded Aussies see it differently.
There's basically a two-tier system in Australia. Those that can, have and do and will do whatever they like, and then there's the rest of us.
Exemptions, valid or otherwise, tougher to come by for those not in the PM's position.
Wouldn't anyone be outraged that the PM can just throw this back in our face? We've been locked down for how long now? And he gets in a jet at the taxpayer's expense, mind you, and flies wherever he wants, whenever he wants. Frankly, it doesn't cut it.
Well, News.com political editor Sam Maiden broke this story and she joins us now. Sam, the PM's done everything by the book here, but does it pass the infamous pub test?
Well, taking a $2,000 VIP RAF jet home for Father's Day when no one else can get across the border to see their own, I think, look, what can go wrong? You're absolutely right. He did seek an exemption, and he does make the point that he didn't need an exemption to fly to Sydney because that's his home. He needed one to get back to Canberra because everybody else, if we went to Sydney from here, we'd have to quarantine for 14 days. Now, he says that he had to come back for a secure meeting, something in the national intelligence space. It seems to be an on-water matter.
So, Samantha, do we know if he actually needed to be in Canberra for this meeting?
Well, it's a little bit opaque because there was almost a suggestion that it was a National Security Committee meeting of Cabinet. There can be special meetings that require special secure communications that have to be done in this sort of bat cave that exists under the Prime Minister's office. But other times you're able to do it from Sydney. They seem to be changing the story a little bit today and saying it was some sort of meeting that couldn't be conducted anywhere else. So he definitely didn't come back, for example, for the Women's Safety Summit. He came back for this meeting they wouldn't say much about. I suppose my question is this. He flew to Sydney on Friday. He applies for the exemption on Saturday, and then he flies back on Monday for this meeting. What happened in that 24 hours between Friday and Saturday? Because if he did know on the Friday when he got on the VIP to go to Sydney that he was going to have to come back, maybe he should have stayed and not used the plane to get back for Father's Day.
Or maybe he just assumed he would get the exemption because he's the Prime Minister, and they might assume that he's got every reason to come back. But I feel like with this story, it's the smoke around it that seems to matter more than the substance in a way. Like the Instagram post where he sort of gave the implication that he wasn't able to see his family, but actually he had been doing exactly that. Is the cover-up element of this actually the biggest problem for him?
Look, I agree with you. You know, he is the Prime Minister. It's not surprising, and he lives in Sydney, right? So he's got a right to go home to Sydney. It's not surprising that sometimes he would need to come back to Canberra. It's just a few little strange notes about it. The Instagram post. Now, I know he probably doesn't do his Instagram posts. I know there's probably some lovely lady called Denise in his office that does it. But why wasn't Denise sent a selfie of him at home with the kids? Why was he trying, or Denise, the mythical Denise, trying to suggest that he wasn't with his family when he was? Why can't he explain to us when he decided that he needed to suddenly come back to Canberra. There's just a few little loose ends. It'll be interesting to see if they're tied up.
But it's classic Denise, isn't it?
Oh, Denise needs to be sacked.
Yeah, well, yeah, Denise has a lot to answer for.
Hawaii was a disaster for the
Bloody Denise.
Prime Minister. I blame Denise. When he went to England, he had his little Ancestry.com little adventure over there. There was backlash with that. For an ad man, why does Scott Morrison have such a blind spot when it comes to optics?
I think that he sometimes believes that he can not disclose everything. He's not always into transparency, and I think it's a little Achilles heel that he always trips off on. It was the same issue with Hawaii. Remember, the problem was that he sneaked off without telling anyone he'd gone overseas. That was the problem. And it's sort of a bit of an echo of that, I think, again.
Sam, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
With so much content online, it's sometimes hard to keep up with it all. And let's face it, who has the time? The Project YouTube has you covered with the stories that matter. Hit subscribe for a daily list of the news that you need to know.